Hi there guys, my name is Malcolm Wilkinson and welcome to Millennial Meals. So on this episode, we're going to be making crustless pizza. Now you may be thinking, well okay, don't you need dough to make a pizza? Or, because I mean that's one of the basic building blocks for it. Well, yes and no, because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using meat to substitute for our bread. So in this case, I'm using homemade Italian sausage, about 1 pound of it. I'm going to put the ingredients over here. So other people, what they do is they use beef, turkey, or sausage, but in this case, obviously, I'm using Italian sausage. Now for vegetables, we want to use 1 green bell pepper, half an onion, 1 jalapeno, and about 4 ounces of sliced mushrooms. Now for some of the other ingredients, we want to use about 4 ounces of pepperoni, 1 pound of mozzarella cheese, 1 jar of pasta sauce or pizza sauce. Really, that's up to you on what you want to use. Now for our dry ingredients, we want to use fennel seed, garlic powder, oregano, and then finally basil. Now what's kind of nice about our dry ingredients that makes it a little bit easier for us, we're only going to use about half a teaspoon for all these things. But with that said, let's start cooking.
So for the equipment, you're going to want to have an oven, a stovetop or hot plate, a little pot to hold our meat in, a cooking tray, which is about 9.5 by 13 inches. This is going to hold all of our ingredients, a plastic spatula for chopping up the meat in the pot and stirring our ingredients inside the cooking tray, and we're going to want to have a metal spatula to cut the pizza in the end. You're also going to want to have a knife and a cutting board so we can cut up our vegetable ingredients. We want a measuring spoon, like a teaspoon or half a teaspoon. We're going to use this for our dry ingredients. You're going to want to have oven mitts because we're going to be using that to take our pizza out. And also it's kind of handy too if you have a couple of oven mitts or some kind of heat resistant material to put on the surface. You're going to want cooking spray. This is going to be used when we're before we throw all of our ingredients in the cooking tray. And then finally, you're going to want to have some kind of paper towel or plate to hold all the ingredients as you're doing all the work that you're doing on the side. And maybe a tiny little cup too to hold the dry ingredients, so then you can put that in when you're starting to put all the vegetables and meat together in the end. Also, I should mention that for the oven, you want to be sure to preheat your oven to 350 degrees. That's going to be the temperature that we're going to be cooking our pizza at.
So now that we got all of our ingredients ready, now we can start cooking. So one of the first things we want to do is we want to turn our stovetop, or I'm using this portable burner, and we want to start cooking our Italian sausage. Basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to make sure we get our crust all nice and done, because that's going to be one of the foundations for the pizza. But while that's cooking, I'm going to start working on some other stuff, like the dry ingredients and cutting up our vegetables.
Also, what I should mention is be sure to keep an eye on the meat that you're cooking. We want to make sure that this is pretty much done, so make sure that it's not raw. But while it's cooking, be sure to chop it up into finer bits because this is going to make it a lot easier to stir up and use as a base layer for our pizza.
Now that our Italian sausage is done, now we're going to put it in our pan. Now, in some cases, what you're going to want to do is, depending upon what type of meat you have, you'll see a whole bunch of fat at the bottom. It's going to look kind of liquidy. Well, in that case, we want to drain that. We don't want to put that in our pan. But surprisingly, this Italian sausage didn't have that much fat. But with that said, we can finally start making our pizza. So what we're going to want to do is we want to try and spread our pizza crust or our Italian sausage as evenly as possible. If we can, we want to also try and mash up some of these bits that kind of got a little too big. So with that, because again, we want to try and not make sure we don't have one side that has this, all this meat, but nothing. Because remember, this is going to be basically the crust to our pizza. So we want to try and spread the love as much as possible. I should also mention that this pan is 9.5 by 13 inches. That's what this recipe calls for, and that's what you're going to want to use when you're making your pizza. So now that we got the crust kind of as even as we can, considering that it's not really dough, now it's time to use the pizza sauce and then all the other ingredients. There we go. So as I stated before, we're going to use 1 jar of pasta sauce, and this is about 24 ounces. Now remember, you can also use pizza sauce. But what we're going to do is we're going to pour our lovely pizza sauce or pasta sauce all up in this pan. Next, we're going to put a little bit of our dry ingredients in here too. And don't worry if it looks a little like uneven. We're going to start stirring this bad boy up to make it a little bit more uniform. All right, so now that we got all of our ingredients, as far as our vegetables and some of those other great little bits, now it's going to be time to add, well, not add, but what I should say is like to stir this up, because one of the things that we want to do is we want to try and make sure that this is as even as possible, because this is going to be infused inside our crust. And plus, we want to, it's almost like a blend of our crust from the sausage and from the vegetables and stuff. All right, so now that we got our crust pretty much made, now we're gonna throw it into our oven. Now remember, we had this set to 350 degrees earlier. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna put it inside the oven for about 40 minutes. Now, the reason why that we want to put our pizza in, or at least the crust in there for 40 minutes, we have a lot of wet ingredients. So let's just say had I thrown the cheese and the pepperoni on top, and just threw it in right now, what will happen is once the pizza gets done, it's going to be a little bit more runny and a little bit more soupy. Well, we don't want that. We want to cook down a lot of the more wet ingredients in the oven. So again, we set it to 350 degrees and we set the timer for about 40 minutes. So I'll see you all in 40 minutes, and after that, we're going to be throwing on the cheese and the pepperoni. Or, also, I guess I should say is, for you, you can use whatever other toppings you want. For this case, we're just going to be using pepperoni. See y'all later. All right, now it's been about 40 minutes. Now we're ready to pull out our pan. And keep in mind, this is not the finished pizza yet. We haven't put on our toppings just yet. All right. So this is what our pizza looks like, at least the crust so far. So what we need to do is now we need to put on our cheese and our toppings. Now keep in mind, you don't have to use pepperoni. You can use whatever toppings you want. In this case, we're going to use about 4 ounces of pepperoni and 1 pound of mozzarella cheese. And now we're going to start building our pizza. All right, so now that we got our ingredients on, now we're going to put this inside the oven for about 30 minutes. Now keep in mind that you can cook this to 20 to 30 minutes, but this is going to be based on what you personally like. So for us, we like it for 30 minutes, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it out to 20 to show you how the cheese and how the pizza looks after 20 minutes. All right, 20 minutes have just passed. Now we're going to see how the cheese looks after, or how our pizza looks after 20 minutes. So this is how the pizza looks after 20 minutes. Now, if this is what you like, feel free to stop here, let this sit for 5 minutes, cut a slice, and then throw it on your plate. But for us here at this house, we like it to cook it a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw this deliciously smelling pizza back in the oven for about 10 more minutes. After 10 more minutes, it'll be time to slice and eat. All right, I'll see y'all after 10 minutes. All right, so now 10 minutes have passed, and now we're ready for our pizza. Whew, that is a little hot, and I wish you guys could smell this. Wish there was a way that there was like a smell-o-vision or something like that, because this is what we got right here. This is our crustless pizza. I mean, like I said, I wish you guys could smell it. Like, the smell is just amazing. But yeah, so this was Millennial Meals. This was Crustless Pizza. I'll see you guys next time.